I'm in the process of reorganizing and redoing a lot of the stuff in here that I work with. Um, the stuff against the wall, yeah, it kind of works, but I'm going to be redoing that here in the future. But what I'm really working on right now and need to take care of is this. I had been storing it down here with my wood storage on the bottom shelf, where that green tote is, and it's worked okay, except my vise gets in the way when I try and pick it up and put it up on the workbench. At 92 pounds, it's doable, it's heavy. Adding the outfeed tables, which was another 4 pounds, puts it to where it's just awkward enough where I really need to do something different with it. So that's what I'm working on right now. And hopefully, when I'm done and what I have designed, I can be able to actually push my planer up against my work surface, and the outfeed table will be at the exact same height. Well, let's see if that actually works.
I started by cutting down the 3/4 inch birch prem core plywood that I'm using to create the legs or the corner supports for the cabinet. I'm cutting this to be a 2x2 box, and I have to cut out enough for 4 sets. I'm not entirely sure why, but you'll notice that my saw was binding up a little bit on this, and I discovered that for some reason, as soon as I put my saw blade at a 45-degree angle, it ends up pushing the board away from the fence, and I am in the process of getting that checked out and figure out what's going on with it. Any time that I have to change the angle of my saw blade, I have to use a machinist square to be able to verify that it's at 90, because my floor is so uneven that I cannot use an actual angle finder, or the digital one that I have, because it never ends up at 90 degrees. And now to cut down the panels for the sides and the back of the cabinet. And now for the fun part of gluing together all of the corner pieces and making sure that they are all square and match up the way they're supposed to. I'm not sure how any less awkwardly I can do this, or if there was an easier way I could have found to do this, but I finally figured out how to get all four of these posts glued together and able to be used. The other three corner posts were glued up off camera. I recorded it, but I didn't include that in here because I was trying to get the video cut down to where it was going to be a reasonable length. It's still longer than what I expected, but there's a lot of detail for this one and a lot of extra steps I took. Now I'm cutting out a 1/4 inch deep dado on each of the supports so that I can attach the sides and back panels. This just helps me to make sure that they're straight, they're even, and I don't have to worry about using additional clamps or measuring to make sure that everything stays exactly where it's supposed to, and I end up with the look that I'm wanting to achieve. And with the dados cut, it is now time to put some pocket holes in the panels to attach them to the corner supports and start getting everything assembled and put together. These clamps that I have for the Craig jig, I bought separately. I do not remember the name of them right off the top of my head, but they are self-adjusting and made life a whole lot easier with being able to cut out the pocket holes and being able to adjust it for the thickness of the wood that I'm working with. I know some of you are probably not going to be happy seeing the pocket holes, but this is for my shop and it's out in the garage. They're going to be hidden. You're never going to see them. And it just helps tie everything together where I don't have to worry about any additional steps for assembly. The only drawback I found with this Premcore plywood is that it's extremely splintery, so I find I have to wear gloves anytime I'm working with it, or I end up with plywood slivers all through my hands. With that being the only complaint I have out of it, it finishes great, it's lightweight, and it's extremely easy to work with. These pieces I'm cutting are the cross braces to go inside that will bring the inside flush with the outside or with the front corner posts so that I can attach the drawer slides. Yeah, I'm sure some of you have noticed that I switched out the miter bar that I have for my saw from the Kreg, which I found to be a little bit inaccurate. I wasn't able to actually be able to adjust that to get it to be perfectly square, and swapped it out for this Incra that I absolutely enjoy. It's extremely easy to adjust. I've got it set to a perfect 90 degree, and it just gives me a lot more freedom and it's easier to work with. I don't think that's supposed to happen. I decided that I was going to put some trim on the bottom to hide the edge of the plywood, and figured cutting a rabbet into the bottom of it would be a good idea. That way I can be able to get the poplar cut, put on, use it for a trim piece just to cover up the plywood edges. And I completely forgot and didn't even take into consideration the pocket holes that were holding the bottom of the cabinet onto in place. And cutting out the rabbets like this actually turned out to be a little more awkward than I anticipated. I really should have cut those beforehand. Not having a good place to actually place the bottom, place the cabinet so I can get the bottom routed out, turned out to be not as easy as I wanted.
So just a little bit of an oops. That's what happens to a mortising bit when you hit pocket screws with it. So yeah, quick trip to the hardware store and well, I'm good.
This is my short milling sled that I put together to mill down pieces of stock that are 4 foot or less in length and typically 1 inch or narrower in width. It works out really great just to get that nice, clean, straight edge on it and be able to have a good reference edge to work with for the rest of the milling process. now I'm just cutting down the 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch strips and cutting a dado out of them, or cutting a rabbet out of these to fit into the rabbet on the bottom of the cabinet so that the trim wraps around the front and gives a nice little lip underneath that will also help with positioning the casters. I didn't realize it, but in the middle of getting ready to get the black stain added to the risers or the corner supports and the bottom of it, as well as the trim, my phone had actually run out of memory, and so there was about an hour and a half or 2 hours of time that I didn't even realize wasn't being recorded. Now I'm working on getting the boards cut for the drawers, and getting them cut to the proper height, and zipping, getting them cut down with my miter saw for the right length and width. And then cutting out the dado in the drawers for the bottom to slide into. And here I'm just right cutting the half-inch plywood that I'm using for the bottom of the drawers. I'll go back and clean up the edges and come to the final size on the table saw. And of course, everybody's favorite part of watching any video is making drawers. I'm trying to spare you as much agony as I possibly can with this. And with both drawers built, it's now time to start getting them put in, getting the drawer size attached, and making sure that everything fits the way it's supposed to. And here I'm cutting out the corners for the shelf that is going to go above the drawers, just to help close that off and give me a little extra storage room. And after several rounds of cutting and shaping and narrowing and recutting and reshaping and re-narrowing, because I couldn't figure out how to read a tape measure at the moment, I was finally able to get the shelf cut and put in place. And now I'm just cutting down some 1/2 inch plywood that I'm using for the face. I took a piece that would cover the entire area, I ripped right through the middle because it'll give me the gap that I want between the drawers and between the drawer faces, and then get them attached. I'm just adding some screws into the back of it just to help secure it and make sure that it's fully secured to the front of the drawer. And now I'm adding some Rubio Monocoat Pure to the outside of the cabinet. I'm not going to do anything to the inside. The outside I'm just going to get a light coating just to help protect it and make it a little bit easier to clean dust off of when I need to. The top that I'm attaching is actually left over from the previous bench that or cabinet that I had built for an older table saw. It was a contractor's table saw that was significantly smaller than what I have now, and this was the extension for the primary workbench. I kept this just because I knew I would probably use it, and it actually turned out to be perfect for this intended purpose. now to find out how well of a job I did with measuring from the beginning. I was actually really, really close. I turned out to be 3/4 of an inch off. I believe I had originally planned on putting a 3/4 inch piece of plywood underneath the top, and I didn't add that in here. Otherwise, it would have turned out to be the exact height that I needed, and I wouldn't have had to put some temporary boards underneath it. Now it's time to run a piece of wood through the planer with it up against my workbench. Make sure that it actually matches up to where it needs to be. I don't have a lip that the wood gets caught on, and see just how close I came to getting this the way I wanted it. Altogether for this project, I ended up with about 13.5 hours of recorded time. There's another 4 to 5 hours of work that either wasn't recorded, and the total work time of about 3.5 days with the drying and having to wait for the garage to be warm enough to actually do any woodworking.
Alright, here's how everything ended up. Some of what I wanted to show you I actually couldn't because my phone ran out of memory. I wasn't able to record the last bit of it with getting the desk collection hose put together, get everything hooked up. The 3/4 inch plywood that's under here is temporary. I was 3/4 of an inch off with my height, which I think is pretty good. That should be corrected once we replace the casters. I do not like the way they work. I just don't like the way they feel. So those will end up being switched around eventually. I ended up drilling a hole to put the PVC pipe through for my desk collection. That way everything hooks up and goes right where it needs to be. As you can see, that is almost completely perfect with the level of my workbench. This is going to make things a lot easier. I now don't have to worry about having a riser for an outfeed table. Everything works very, very well. And with the drawers in place, now I have a place to store other vacuum attachments, dust collection stuff. It's just going to make life a whole lot easier. And of course, extra hoses, all that fun stuff. But here we go. This, like I said, this is going to make life a whole lot easier for me. And so there we go.